It was February 2013 in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. A 21-year-old student, Maya Park, checked into the Cecil Hotel. Now, this wasn't just any hotel. It had a reputation, a dark past whispered about in hushed tones. It was known for its cheap rooms, its strange guests, and the kind of stories that most people preferred not to talk about. Maya was just passing through on a trip up the coast. It was unsettling. Maintenance was sent up to check the large water tanks on the hotel roof. As they climbed the ladder and peered over the edge of the first tank, they discovered something they would never, ever forget. Inside one of the massive metal tanks floated Maya. She was fully clothed, her body lifeless in the murky water. The scene was baffling. There was no sign of a break-in on the roof. The only access door was locked from the inside. The tanks themselves were made of heavy steel. With lids so cumbersome, they were almost impossible to lift without specialized tools. And yet, there she was. How did she get in there? The initial shock quickly gave way to a deeper, more disturbing mystery. But the most unsettling piece of the puzzle came from the hotel's own security footage, specifically from the elevator camera recorded on the night she vanished. The video shows Maya stepping into the elevator at exactly 1:57 in the morning. Her behavior is immediately erratic. She presses multiple buttons, almost all of them one after another. But the elevator doors don't close. They just stay open. She peeks out into the hallway, her head darting back and forth as if she's looking for someone, or perhaps hiding from someone. Her movements are strange, almost like a disjointed dance. She hides in the corner of the elevator, pressing herself against the wall, as if trying to become invisible. Then, she cautiously leans out again, stepping just outside the doors. She starts gesturing with her hands, a flurry of odd, unreadable motions aimed at something or someone that we, the viewers, cannot see. There's nothing there. And then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she walks away, disappearing down the hallway. The elevator doors finally slide shut, and the footage ends. The video went viral. Theories exploded across the internet. Some people said she was clearly hallucinating, perhaps under the influence of something that caused a severe psychotic break. Others were convinced she was being chased, that she was playing a terrifying game of hide-and-seek with an unseen pursuer. But when the police meticulously reviewed the footage from the hallway cameras, their findings only deepened the mystery. No one else ever appeared. There was no shadow in the corner, no reflection in a polished surface, not even a flicker of movement down the hall. Maya was completely, utterly alone. For weeks, investigators and online sleuths tried desperately to explain what happened. Was it a simple case of malfunctioning elevator doors that triggered a paranoid episode? Was there foul play involved? A predator who knew the hotel's blind spots? The questions piled up, but the answers remained elusive. But then a new detail emerged, a story from another hotel guest that cast a ghostly pall over the entire investigation. This guest swore they saw Maya on that very same night, just moments before the elevator footage was recorded. They claimed she was standing silently at the far end of the corridor, her clothes and hair dripping wet, staring into the darkness. Just then, the elevator doors at the other end of the hall opened by themselves, beckoning into an empty car. Since that time, the legend of the Cecil Hotel has only grown. Guests who stay on the 14th floor, the floor where Maya was staying, report strange occurrences. They say that sometimes, at exactly 1:57 a.m., the elevator begins to move on its own. The official ruling was an accident, but for many, that explanation feels hollow, incomplete. It doesn't explain the locked door, the heavy lid, or her bizarre behavior in the elevator. But the story doesn't end there. Every year, someone staying in that very hotel reports having a recurring, vivid dream. A dream of a young girl in an elevator, frantically pressing every button, desperate for the doors to close. An elevator that never moves. So, if you ever find yourself staying at the Cecil, and you hear the chime of the elevator late at night, long after midnight, maybe it's best to take the stairs. Because some rides only go one way, the last elevator. It's said that it always waits for one more passenger. It was late October, 2018. In a quiet, sleepy town just outside Portland, Oregon, a man named Tom Harris worked the night shift as a truck driver. His nights were long, lonely journeys through winding roads, and his only companion was the crackle and hum of his radio. He'd listen to anything news music. Late-night talk shows, just something to slice through the silence and keep his eyes open. But one particular night, as the fog rolled in thick and heavy, he tuned into something he shouldn't have. Something that was never meant for him. It started around 2:15 in the morning. Tom was navigating his rig through a particularly dense stretch of fog on a highway that bordered an old, dark forest. Suddenly, his radio began to buzz, not with static, but with a strange, rhythmic signal. It repeated over and over again. 3 distinct tones, a short pause, and then a voice. It was distorted, almost mechanical, and it sent a chill down his spine. It said, "Can you hear me, Tom?" He froze. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. It said his name. How could it possibly know his name? His first thought was that it had to be a prank. Some elaborate, late-night pirate radio show trying to spook drivers. He reached for the dial, intending to find any other station, but it was no use. No matter where he turned it, left or right, the same eerie voice came through, cutting through every frequency. And then it spoke again. Its tone now urgent. "Keep driving. Don't stop." The world outside his cabin seemed to grow darker, more oppressive. His headlights struggled to pierce the thick mist, revealing nothing but the endless silhouettes of trees and the occasional glint of an old, rusted highway sign. The road felt wrong, and that's when he saw it. Up ahead, a car was parked sideways, completely blocking one lane. Both of its doors were wide open, and its headlights flickered erratically, like a dying pulse. There was no one inside, or at least, he thought there wasn't. Tom instinctively slowed down, his heart pounding against his ribs. He fumbled for his phone, thinking he should call for help. But before he could even unlock the screen, the radio crackled to life once more. The voice was now sharp, insistent. "Don't look inside. Keep driving, Tom." A wave of pure, primal fear washed over him. He didn't question it. He slammed his foot on the gas pedal, the engine roaring as his truck surged forward, swerving to avoid the abandoned vehicle. But as he sped past, he couldn't resist a quick, sideways glance. And what he saw would be burned into his memory forever. There was a figure in the driver's seat. It was sitting perfectly still, its head tilted back against the rest, its eyes wide open and staring blankly into the foggy night. In that same instant, the chilling voice echoed from his speakers one last time. He didn't listen. The next few miles were a complete blur. Tom didn't remember steering or even breathing. He was running on pure adrenaline, his mind replaying the image of that vacant stare over and over. He just drove, faster and faster, until the comforting lights of a 24-hour gas station appeared through the fog. He screeched to a halt, threw open his door, and ran inside, his body shaking uncontrollably. The attendant behind the counter looked up, startled by his frantic entrance. "Hey, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost?" Tom, gasping for breath, pointed back toward the highway he'd just come from. "There's a car back there. Someone needs help." The attendant just frowned, his expression shifting from concern to confusion. "Sir, there's no road open there tonight. That whole stretch has been closed since the accident." Last week, Tom's blood ran cold. He stumbled back outside to his truck, his mind reeling. But his radio was dead, completely silent, no power. He glanced at the dashboard clock. It was frozen, stuck at 2:15 a.m., the exact time the signal had started. That night, sleep was impossible. Tom sat in his motel room, his laptop open, frantically searching for answers. He typed in keywords like haunted radio, ghost broadcast, and phantom highway signal, and then he found them. Obscure online forums and message boards filled with stories from other drivers, other late-night listeners who had heard the same thing. A signal that only appeared on foggy, desolate highways. A broadcast that always knew their name. A voice that gave them one simple instruction: keep driving. The stories all had one thing in common. The few who claimed they stopped to investigate were never heard from again. A year passed. The closed section of the highway was eventually reopened. Local police, doing a final sweep of the area, made a chilling discovery. They found multiple abandoned cars scattered over several miles. All of them were facing the same direction. And inside each one, the radio was still tuned to a dead frequency. On the fogged-up glass of some of the windshields, as if traced by a ghostly finger, were the same two words: keep driving. But on the last car, they found something else. Written faintly in the condensation were three words: keep driving. "Tom," they say, "even now, if you're driving that stretch of road after midnight, and the fog rolls in just right, your radio might start to hum with that same strange rhythmic tone. They say you shouldn't try to change the station. And you should never, ever stop. Because once that signal knows your name, it never really lets you go. The signal is still out there. It's always listening, and it's waiting for you." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more.